from awards to listings, for those of you who might not know me, I am Karen Green. I've been working in this industry for over 30 years. I'm about to lose my voice. First as a retail buyer and then as a commercial director in mostly food and drink. I'm now a consultant. I work with different, mostly food and drink companies, although a few FMCG as well. Author of 2 books, and obviously we're going to talk about awards. So both of them were shortlisted for Business Book Awards, and we obviously have the Friday Accelerator podcast, which goes out at the end of every month, last Friday of the month. I have won a couple of awards, Saleswoman of the Year a couple of years ago with the Women's Business Club, and then back in my days as commercial director for Sushi Company, we won Innovation Company of the Year for sushi. I have been shortlisted countless times for a variety of different things, also including Lifetime Achievement Award in the Women in Food Industry, Women in Food and Drink Awards this year, and GBEA, so the Entrepreneur Awards a couple of times, and so on and so forth. So it's hard being shortlisted for lots of times. And one of the great things about most of the food and drink awards is they do have gold, silver, bronze. So it feels a lot better to have an award rather than a shortlist. But it has been useful. Certainly the book awards, I've used a lot on Amazon to promote it. And yeah, it's always good to say award-winning. I should have said it actually in my title, award-winning business consultant. But yeah, this is much more about products and how we can convert those awards actually into listings, which is the whole point of the conversation. So I wanted to talk about what do retail buyers actually think of awards, because as part of my current client work as retail consultant for Quality Food Awards, I have been talking to pretty much all of the UK retailers, grocery retailers. So I've got really good insight into what they think. We're going to talk about how to build an award strategy and think about what's the best way of entering award, and then how to actually convert that into listings and use them commercially. So what do buyers think of awards? I did have some big chunky quotes up here, but I took them out because I thought it was a little bit too much. But as you can see, these are 3 screen grabs from LinkedIn over the last few weeks of where each of the retailers how proudly showing their awards. The retailers, the UK grocery multiples, like entering awards. So you've got the Sammys, you've got Retail Awards, you've got the Wine Awards down in the right-hand corner. And I think they particularly like, obviously, Supermarkets of the Year, but they also like to win those awards, and they use them quite extensively in press coverage and PR. So it really does signal that the products that you have are good quality. The awards can help retailers to find new brands, and that's an interesting opportunity to help you if you're in that shortlist or you're in that awards list. I think a lot of retailers do actually go through those lists and have a look, see what's there. So I think that's quite interesting. And then I think the other thing that they certainly do view awards as creating confidence that actually these products have been through some really good, strong reviews. And they also recognize that the consumers recognize the awards. So it's it's a multifaceted, multi-layered approach. And I've been working with brands now for 11 years, and I've always wanted to put awards in as part of the overall strategy. So it's interesting to do that now. In terms of power for the awards, I went through and had a look. There's a lady called Donna O'Toole. You can look her up. She's just launched an awards app, actually, which you might find interesting to go and have a look at. It's one of Daniel Priestley's many business spin-offs. And one of her statistics is that actually post-award revenue for companies goes up by 63%. And it's a stat that she's got from a foundation that does research into these things. But the point is that it's not just, I don't think, you slap a logo on and you go, we won an award. It's actually the process of applying for awards. So I kind of liken it to when I used to apply for jobs, and I did a lot of interim. So I was using CVs a lot. And you write your CV and you suddenly read your CV and go, gosh, have I done all that? And it builds up your thought process where you think, oh, I could do more of this, more of that, etc. And it starts you thinking a bit more strategically. And I think once you start to think about having an awards strategy, the same process starts. So the companies, and I'm going to show you an example of one in a bit, that really think about how they're going to use awards, start that process early on. And we are going to be very much focused on product awards, but there are, of course, awards for founders and people who are running businesses. And a lot of those do ask some quite in-depth questions. So I mentioned the Great British Entrepreneur Awards, which as I say, I was shortlisted for a couple of times. That's quite a chunky entry. And you really have to think about the strategy of your business and what you've been doing and what your future plans are. And just that thought process, working together with your team or as an individual, it does make the difference. So I think when you say up 63%, like I say, it's not just because you've slapped the award on. And then once you do win the award, then there's all the bits and pieces which we're going to talk about today that again stack up to make something really powerful to raise the profile of the brand, whether it's with the consumer or with the trade. So I also did a little survey last week on LinkedIn to ask people, so how does winning award create value for the brand? And these were the results. So 50% actually said better retail credibility. So that was quite powerful and really nice, because that's obviously what we're going to talk about and focus on today. But it also highlighted the other two parts, which are it gives the opportunity for PR and media coverage, and also increased consumer trust. And with the Quality Food Awards, we have done some research recently, and something like 70% of people are more likely to buy a product with awards. And we weren't just looking at quality food, we were looking at good housekeeping, great taste, and all the others. So it is powerful. And this is not a sales pitch for the Quality Food Awards. Can I just say that? I will talk about it because I'm quite excited about what we're doing and use it as an example. But as you will come to see, there are other awards are available. And then for the buyer, I mean, I've already touched on this, but I think there is the independent validation. And I think if you are winning the gold awards or the 3 stars, it really is independent validation. I've judged most awards in my time, and it's strict. You actually have training before you go into it. The people who are doing it are food experts from different parts of the world, different parts of the industry. So they have real strong understanding of what makes a good product, what makes a good product that sells. So it gives that proven product quality. As I say, the customer is more positive about it if they see an award. I always use the analogy of wine, because for me, wine is really quite hard, especially here in France. In the UK, I used to just pick the grape I like, whereas here it's domain of this and domain of that. And it's like, oh my goodness, what shall I buy? And then you think, well, I'll just go for one that's got an award. And it also gives the story for you to talk to people. And I think that's really important, whether it's shoppers or buyers, but it also gives the retailer a story to tell. And you'll see lots of different publicity. And I was just thinking, Tesco's won Picky Tea Retailer of the Year with Good Housekeeping a couple of weeks ago, and they put out a press release going with Picky Tea, and there was lots on LinkedIn. So it's a story worth selling, shoppers, and that's where your sales are going to go up, which is all contributing to that revenue growth piece. And then the next one is evidence that the brand is actually investing in growth. So it's not just the fact that it is going to sell more, but the fact that you're actually showing that you've got a strategy and showing that you are looking at all the different opportunities for promoting your products. And obviously on top of this, and we're not going to talk about it today, but things like reviews are so important. I'm sure everyone listening has gone onto the website, had a look, gone, what's the review? What's the score? What's the Trustpilot? What's the TripAdvisor? We all look at reviews, and it just gives that tangible evidence. And then, the category differentiation. If you are the only person in the category that's won an award, that's pretty outstanding. And that might be because your fellow competitors haven't entered, but it does give you that standout. And as you win more awards, you can become this multi-award winning, multi-credible. You don't just enter product awards, but you enter the founders awards, you get a B Corp. And it just, as I say, I keep saying stacks, but I think that's what you've got to get into your mind, that awards is part of a stacking system to make something more interesting, so that the buyer, one of the things you've got to remember about buyers is they need to reduce risk. So the way to reduce risk is to show how great your sales are, how well it performs elsewhere, how much your customers love it, what your repeat purchasing is, and the quality, which is where the awards come from. Great. You buy it, you want to do some awards. The question is, there's a lot of awards out there, and I'm not sure, but I've certainly been scammed recently. I've been told I won Consumer Psychology and Biology of the Year award or something, which I suspect might be AI generated, and I only needed to pay $795 for something, a piece of plastic. Anyway, that one is not a very valid award, but there are a lot of others. And I think the first thing you've got to think about, as you do with everything, is what's your strategy. So I've kind of tried to think of some of the different things that you might be looking for. So if you're starting out as a business, farm shops and delis might be something that's really interesting to you, to take you to that first listing level. You might be looking for wholesalers and distributors. You might be going for the grocery multiples, which is the area that I tend to focus on. You might be looking to export, and there are export awards. So there's, oh gosh, it's up actually, but there are awards for export, the King's Award for export. So that's something that you might want to have a look at if you're a big export person. You might just be thinking, well, actually, at the moment, all I'm doing is, not necessarily all, but I'm doing direct to consumer. So something that's more appealing to them. So maybe great taste is more relevant. You might be wanting to build consumer trust. So if you're featured in something like Good Housekeeping, they do tend to just do own label, but if you're featured there, that might be something that's got real tangible trust behind it. You might be thinking, well, what's most PRable? So for example, as you'll see with TRIP, all of their products have won Great Taste Awards. So that's a really interesting story, and that's really PRable. So thinking about, well, what stories am I trying to tell with the awards? Team motivation. If you've got a big team, it's something that we've looked at with the Quality Food Awards, where there's a number of product developers working on different ranges. It's very motivational if they enter their ranges and they win within a bigger company and within the smaller company as well. You know, it's great to get that recognition. And then, of course, there's the investors. So if investors are a little bit like buyers, they want to know what you're up to and to know that you are actually building a credible brand. So that's certainly worth thinking about. And what are they likely to be interested in? So I don't know, there might be finance of the year award as well. So in terms of just focusing a little bit down into some of the product awards, I tried to sort of think about the three levels within products specifically. So with Farm Shop and Delis, and other awards are available, so please don't think that these are the only ones. Great Taste is probably the best known. I think there's over 2,000 awards given. I can't remember how many 3 stars there are. I think it might be about 10%. And then they have the top 50, which are outstanding. So there is a really good, strong award system there, and it is recognized by consumers. Farm Shop and Deli Show have an awards every year that you can enter if you are exhibiting. Great British Food has just closed, so the clue's in the title with that one. It's all about great food that is made in the UK. It doesn't have to be artisanal British, specifically traditional British food, but it's certainly food from the UK. And then under there, what I would also put in is regional awards. So there are a number of regional awards, which obviously far too numerous to list, but where you are based, it might be useful, especially if you're thinking of doing what I recommend for smaller brands is to start local and go outwards. So if there's a local for your region, for your town, it might be worth starting with that as well, and then more Actually, they're probably not any different priced, but some of them are free. Then you've got the specialist awards. So depending what category your products sit in, there's obviously the free from. I think the free from are probably the best specialist awards or best known specialist awards, but there's bakery, there's the BFFF frozen awards, there's Nourish, there's Boom, there's Mother and Baby, there's a number of different specialist awards. And again, if that's something that's relevant to your business, it's worth having a look at them and having a look at who's won before, how have they used it, and whether that could be helpful depending where you are in your business life cycle. And then as you grow, you've got the Grocer Awards. So the Grocer have got two, actually. They've got the New Product Awards and then Grocer Gold. They are more expensive to enter. So I haven't really talked about the cost of entry anywhere here, but it's probably worth just stopping and breathing a second. I'm not sure how much the Grocer's New Product, I want to say 600, but that might be the ticket for dinner. It's a chunk of cash. Quality Food Awards is similar if you're a larger producer. If you're under 2 million turnover with less than 10 employees, then it's actually only 109 up until today. Then it goes up to 119. And then the Federation, the Food and Drink Federation also have some awards, which was the one that I won for innovation all those years, or me and the company, Ekiban, won all those years ago. And as I say, sorry, going back to Great Taste, that's very reasonably priced. And I think Farm Shop and Deli is free, actually. And Great British Food's about 70, and you pay a bit extra for feedback. So it kind of gives you an idea. And, you can enter one product or you can enter all your products, depending what range you've got. So that can be quite interesting, because that then enables you to maybe make that claim of all my products have an award. So I've kind of mentioned TRIP a couple of times. I put this out on LinkedIn this week, and I did a couple of others as well. If you go back to look at my LinkedIn post, I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday. What I wanted to look at was companies to see how are they using awards. And TRIP started back in 2018. They got their first Great Taste Award. Then they got multiple wins, and then they're like, well, hang on a second, we are now every TRIP drink has won a Great Taste Award, and that's a big thing. Then they entered the Grocer Awards in 2023, and then for the last 3 years they've been in the Sunday Times fastest growing company, which you don't pay to enter, but it's an award in itself. And obviously it's that trajectory that I was trying to describe to you in terms of where awards fit in the trajectory. And they're probably in the Grocer Golds this year, but I'm not sure. I think I saw them there. So yeah, but I think, like I say, the award for TRIP is fitting into their overall business growth. It's part of a building block of growth strategy. When you're thinking about entering, which category do you go for? Because quality food is top of my mind at the moment, I'm just showing you the categories that they have. And underneath all year round categories, there's obviously bakery and deli and meat and fish and poultry. And then we've got health and nutrition categories, and that's new for this year. And there's a lot in there. So there's protein, well-being. It's very worth going and having a look, seeing what there is there. There's Christmas, the clues in the title, they are products that are specifically designed for Christmas. Food service, baby and toddlers new, and drinks is also new. So there's soft drinks within all year round, and then drinks, alcoholic drinks. So when I say which category to enter, sometimes you do need to have a little think about that. So for example, you might have a product that's high protein, high fiber, but is I don't know, sandwich is probably easiest in that one. So does it sit in all year round and health and nutrition? And that's something that you need to have a think about and go back to your strategy and say, well, actually, what's the key messaging that we're trying to get over when we are communicating this? Because when we win, you want to be able to go, we won this. And also look at, who else was involved last year? It's quite interesting. On how to enter, so also have a look at the criteria. Now, I've picked Quality Food because we happen to be doing it at the moment. They have 10 different criteria, and it's really important when you're thinking about your entry, and all the entries are all different. I've just done some for a client, which is the Great British food, and it's really straightforward. It is literally, this is the product. I can't remember. I don't think there's anything else to say actually, which is really simple. But as you'll see from Q in a minute, this one's a little bit more complicated. So these are the 10: taste, flavor, texture, aroma, what you would expect, same as great taste. But then you've got ingredients list, provenance, where's it from, appearance, packaging. Some, like the great taste, just focus on taste, and others focus on the whole 360 of the products, which Qs do. Price point, value for money, that's quite important. So is it well priced, or is it crazy expensive? But there is a value for money element as well. And then what's new and exciting? It doesn't have to be new and exciting. And I think this is the other thing that's really important. I've talked quite a lot about newness and the trajectory. But if you're an established business, there's nothing wrong with entering products, your best sellers. And for some ways, it was probably a good idea. You might want to promote newness, but actually your existing products that you know sell, because, you know, if you're selling a lot of a product and then you get 68% growth, that's 68% of a bigger number. So think about what products you're going to enter. And then, like I say, be aware of the criteria. How to enter, I will, if you drop your name or email in the chat, very happy to share these slides with you. This is a prompt that I got ChatGPT to do. So the top is actually the Quality Food Awards question. So it's basically describe the product and the qualities of the product. And I put into ChatGPT, write me a compelling awards entry that scores highly against the criteria, and you can upload the criteria because they're available on the website, and then write a 100-word response, and then you can ask it to test it, criticize it, and then on the right hand side, here's all the input that I would put it on to give it the detail to write it. I wouldn't recommend you submit an AI version unless your AI is super well trained. I think you should then write it in your own words that reflect the brand, because I think AI versions are not always the best. And I've just judged Women in Food Awards, and you can certainly see some common themes that come out of AI entries, but it's there as an option. Success stories. So Lada Makes is a client of mine. We entered the Qs last year, or she entered the Qs last year. Massaman Curry won a gold. This was what we wrote. So basically talking about her brand and then the actual product itself, what it did, how the flavors are delivered. So you're talking about flavor, and obviously the pricing was on the form. And she's more at the start of her journey. We are in CLF, but she then wrote out and used it with the retailers, and we should be having a Selfridges launch soon. Selfridges were very interested in it. So there's a good solid case study there for when it works. But that's how you can, get in. And I'm not going to go into the detail of, the obvious stuff, like make sure you put your entry in and send your samples and do whatever. But I think you've got to remember that winning awards is only the start of it. As I've talked about, the stacking of awards, most brands win an award, probably do a LinkedIn post, maybe put it on socials, might do a press release, but not everybody does press releases these days, and then forget all about it. You might put the logo on, depending which award, but some awards charge you, some don't. The better way is when you win the award to really think about your activation. So what are you actually going to do with it? And I'm going to sort of repeat this about 4 times, so forgive me, but I just want to get this message across. So it needs to go onto the packaging, and that can be a problem, because if you're a small producer, you might have a lot of packaging already, but you can oversticker. So we certainly overstickered with Lada. It needs to go out to the buyers and the people that you're targeting. It needs to be out there with the consumers, and you need to be using it as much as possible. It needs to go out in your trade PR. And once all of these pieces come together, then hopefully you start to see more listings, because it just starts to give you more substance, as we've already said. So just going into it in a bit more detail, I'm not going to talk a lot about retailer presentations today. I am going to be running a retailer growth workshop next month. So at the end, you can sign up for the wait list. I haven't decided the date yet, but it may well be just after Bread and Jam, because I'll be over in the UK then. So, but within the retailer presentation, bringing the award in at the beginning just, I think, is a reassurance that you can say, you know, we've got this great brand, it's doing really well, we've won these awards, we've got this accreditation for the factory, etc. And the buyer goes, okay, ticks in what I call the hygiene boxes. It's a great way of using third-party validation, and you may well like to use it actually in your testimonials and review page if you have one. So people use their Ocado reviews or their online reviews. You can have, if you get the feedback, because you always get feedback from most awards, Great Taste, as I say, I think you have to pay for the Great British Food one, but that's really great, because if you get some really lovely feedback, you can put that in here as well, and it does give you that validation. You can talk about how you're going to use it in promoting it to the consumer. You can also use it as an outreach opportunity. So as I mentioned with Lada, we'd already spoken to Selfridges, and it was a good way of saying, I think we've just won an award. And I've used that a lot actually as a strategy, because I know, oh gosh, I can't remember who it was. I think it's Carson. I don't know if you're on, Carson, but you were saying, well, how do I get people to reply? Because, you know, you go through this cycle of you write something out, they ask for samples, nothing happens, da, da, da. It just gives you another opportunity to say, hi, you know, those samples that you had 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and you've lost, here's some news, we've got some news. And it gives you a reason to speak to people, which I really like. And again, I do a whole session about how to keep going back to a retailer to try and stop ghosting, because ghosting is our biggest nightmare. And trust me, with the Quality Food Award outreach that I've done, I've had a lot of ghosting. So I have a lot of recent personal experience, but we have gone around it in different ways. And then, like I say, standing out versus the competition. I never recommend slagging off the competition. But if you're doing a comparison table, it might be a really good place to pop at the bottom awards, and then you get the ticks in the boxes. So we like that. Second one, trade marketing. Put your logos on any documents that go out to the trade. So make sure that it becomes part of your email signature. It's part of your sales sheets. Send it out to all of your distributors. Although we did send out to CLF that Lada Makes had a gold award, and could we put it on? And they said, oh yes, you can change your listing for, I think it was another £2,000. So I don't think we did that. But again, get out there with the trade press, stick it on your advertising. And obviously the LinkedIn post about, we're so proud of winning an award, but think about other ways that you can actually promote it. Like I was saying about TRIP, where they won awards for everything. You know, awards bank up over a couple of 2 or 3 years, so you can add to it to make it more interesting and more useful, so you're not just repeating the same thing over again. Consumer marketing, as I say, your website, it's worth having it on there somewhere, wherever. I mean, flashed obviously if you've got a shop. Talk about it, why you've won. Again, the feedback that you've had from judges, really good to get that on there. So again, you're building up that credibility. Email signatures I've mentioned. Obviously in newsletters, if you run newsletters, which we do recommend to engage with your customers, have it there. On the packaging, again, there's a cost element to that. If you're stickering, that costs. Some logos you have to pay, but it's really worth having it on there. I don't think Great Taste pay, I don't think, and Quality Food certainly don't. Social media, if you feel it's relevant, and this goes back to your strategy of entering the right awards, and I think that's really important. And then obviously out in the consumer press. And finally, if you are raising funds, then you need to be getting it out there into the investors and the funding conversations to basically say, look, we're doing well. And I think that's a really good one. Like I say, we haven't really talked a lot about founder and awards for specific people, but they can be super powerful, and it's worth having a look at as well too, especially for investor funding, because that's maybe more about the team than the products and product listings. So one award, definite listing. I say definite, but I'll hesitate. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll probably be aware, or you've seen it in my newsletter, that we agreed a sponsorship deal with Whole Foods. They love the idea of the queues and have agreed to be the sponsor for the small producer. So small producer, in case you're wondering, is under 2 million turnover and 10 employees. It's judged as part of the total judging categories. So if I'll carry on with my food to go example, if you're a sandwich, you would be judged in the sandwich, but then if you win an award, there will be a special judging day, which is probably the first week of August, I think. I shall be there, Whole Foods will be there, and the quality food top judges will be there, and we will then look at the specifics for the small producer award. In previous years, I wasn't working with the queues, but I was working with a company called Pelagonia, and at that time it was sponsored by the Co-op, and Pelagonia entered. I suggested they enter. I thought it'd be really good for them. They entered, they got shortlisted, and they actually got a listing out of it. And I think it's a good 3, 4, 5 years ago now. And they're still in the Co-op, and they've actually just been listed, had some more products listed. It's a really good opportunity. The difference and the positive about this one is Whole Foods have said they will consider listing up to 12 products, which is pretty exciting. They will need to be gold winners. They will need to go past the Whole Foods will it sell question, because the award isn't a will it sell, it's a quality food award. And the other thing I will say, and again, if you don't have this because it's not in the public domain, there is a list of ingredients that Whole Foods do not have in their store. And if you've got one of those in there, then you will not be listed, even if you get a gold award. So it's worth having a look at that. It's it's fairly obvious, but it's certainly worth having a look at. So the gold winners will be considered. The silver winners, they are going to do I think it's going to be about 90-minute coaching session for how to launch into Whole Foods. And obviously it's going to be a real profile raising opportunity, and the bronze winners will be seen as well. So it's really exciting. And if you fit the criteria and it's something you're interested in, I've put a QR code there. You don't have to, please don't just disappear now and enter. There's another 2 weeks, but today is the last day of the standard pricing. I think it goes up by £10 after midnight tonight, but you can also register your entry, and you'll get the discount code, and then you can actually do the entry bit later. Worth having a look. This is not about plugging the Quality Food Awards, although it does help. It's very much to say this is probably one of the best opportunities. I mean, I do promote bread and jam and other opportunities for pitching, but this one's pretty chunky if Whole Foods is your target audience. So this is a little bit complicated, awards to listing roadmap, and you're very welcome to take a screenshot, have a look at it later. But what I wanted to do was just to, if you took the cues, and you can use this for any award system, is to start to think about, well, how do I go from an award to a listing? And you will see the listing is not immediate, because say, for example, you won a gold award with Whole Foods, and Whole Foods said, yeah, we're going. The cues are not announced until I think it's the 9th of November at the gala do. So then I don't know whether it'll be like Aldi's next big thing, and you launch next week, which would be in November, or it'll take longer. But I think one of the things that you really have to be aware of is how long it takes to go from the start to the finish, assuming the finish is a listing. So come June, we're in June, think about the awards, think about your commercial strategy, think about which awards you're going to do. So put together a plan for the year. And if you're going for the queues, enter before the closing date. It won't be extended again, but there may be other awards. So I know GBEA is coming up. That's a great one. And there's a lot of others. And as I say, I'm not an affiliate for Donna O'Toole's app, but she's got a way of finding all the awards that might be suitable. So it's worth looking at. Through the summer, start to think about your activation strategy. So the shortlist is actually announced on the 26th of August. So that's the date when you will get some opportunities. So if you're shortlisted, that's very exciting because you can start to use that, but start to think about, how am I going to target retailers? Are there other distributors I want to target? Press and media, who would I really like to get some coverage with? How am I going to use it with LinkedIn? And also, even now, if you get shortlisted, worth popping it into your sales presentations, because it's quite an exciting opportunity, because we don't want to wait until November. I've suddenly realized, actually, I put the 12th of November there. I do need to check that date. I think it's not exactly 12th, but it might be. So September to November. So now you're starting to build momentum. So you can really start to do the retailer outreach, use your social proof of the shortlist recognition. As I say, use the judges' feedback when it comes in November for content. Start to get ready for post-award communications. It's hard. And as I mentioned before, I have been shortlisted for a number of awards, and I always feel a bit disappointed when I don't get there. So I certainly, when I was shortlisted for Lifetime Achievement Award, hadn't actually written anything post-award. And then when Annabelle Carnwell won it, which was a very worthy winner, I did write a post about her. So yes, you're going to have a win or a not win, but I'm sure we need to focus on winning. And then November, I've put November to February, but I mean, this is, how do you convert that recognition into revenue, which is, going back to that initial slide of saying, let's grow by 68%. So get back in contact with the buyers, do all those things that I've already mentioned. So get the logos in, share the feedback, do the presentations, update websites, packaging, social media, PR, really, really work it. And don't be shy about working it either. And I think if you go back, and I always think once somebody said something, you will see it over and over again. Look at how other people talk about the awards. Bold Bean, people who win B Corp, or it's not winning, sorry, achieve B Corp. When people get the status and the recognition, they really do talk about it. So remember, that's why you're winning awards, is for the recognition. So in summary, enter the right awards. As I say, I have talked about a little bit about the food and drink based ones, and there are quite a few other ones. Make sure that the awards do align with your growth ambition. So if you want to roll out nationally, your local award for Swindon Business Centre or something isn't relevant. But if you're actually selling on Swindon Market, it's probably super relevant. So think about how the awards will align over the next 12 months. It might be the 24 months, might be 3 years. You might say, well, actually, first year we're going to do Great Taste. Second year we're going to do Great Taste again, but we're going to put in more products. So then we can say we've got them all. Then we might do Qs. And then once we're listed in a couple of retailers, grocers, we might go for the golds. So think about what that strategy is, and then think about how you're going to use it. So all of the different ways, because the whole point of this is to win a listing, which is about getting the conversation going, getting the right presentation, reducing the risk, getting people interested, but also, of course, is to sell it once it goes on shelf. And sometimes we forget that. We put it on shelf and then we forget about it because we're going to get the next listing. And awards, again, are all part of and parcel of that, keeping momentum going. And then get some help if you need help. I mentioned I'm going to be running a retail growth workshop. We're going to look at how to create that overall growth strategy. So awards form part of that. And then to look at how you drive more sales with existing retailers. So going back to that 68% growth for people who win awards, they've probably already got some listings. So how do you actually build on those? And then how do you get the new listings that does the step change? And of course, there will be some on how to more work on how to turn those awards into commercial opportunities. There will only be 10 people on the course max. So if you are interested, you can join the wait list. It's no obligation. And if you want to come along, I will contact you once we've got a date in place. Okay, so that's my little awards to listings Stephen, have we got any questions?
We've got a couple. If anyone does have a question, drop it in the chat while we cover these ones. The first one is, or in your experience, do awards organisers prefer to see new names and producers win awards, or do they tend to favour the big names and the previous winners?
I can honestly say there isn't a consideration for the brand or the producer. So certainly when I've judged Great Taste, I don't think you even know what the products are, actually. Sorry, what the brand is. You just get a biscuit. This is a biscuit, and it's this kind of biscuit, and then you taste it. So it's completely blind. Obviously, with Great Taste and Grocer Gold, it's not blind, but I don't think there is a preference with something like the quality food. What happens is people like Aldi and Lidl will have a block entry, so they enter a lot of products, which is why they end up winning lots of awards. And so it's that kind of obvious, but yeah, the more awards they enter, the more they win. But to be honest, it's now in the time I've been working with quality food, it's never come up as a question or even a consideration. So no, I think every product is genuinely assessed on merit.
That's good.
Right.
One other question. Here we go. Do particular categories get better traction from being able to say they've won an award?
There are certainly categories that people like. For example, Aldi are awful fond of winning the Christmas Retailer of the Year at Q's, for example. I don't know. And also actually, so when I've been putting presentations together, I've gone through the awards quite like a nerd several times. And what you'll find is some categories are not hugely oversubscribed, but there's a lot shortlisted, and some maybe only have one or two. And some categories, and this is quite important to say, don't get awards at all. There are some categories in 2025 which didn't have any gold awards at all because nothing came up to scratch. And then there might be 4, 5, 6 awards, golds, maybe not 5 or 6, but there were quite a few golds in some of the categories. I'm not sure that actually answers the question, but
I think looking at what they're getting at is, are there categories where is there categories where the award makes a bigger difference? I think you talked about wine, didn't you? So it's like,
I think free from has always been strong. So if you are a very clear free from product and you're maybe either selling in the free from aisle, or you really want to stand out as a free from product amongst your non-free from brothers and sisters, I think that works well. Wine, definitely. I think wine has, where people need help making decisions, I think, and again, I'm only talking instinctively here, but where you're not sure. So I've done quite a lot of work with chocolate, and there is a chocolate, there's 2 award bodies for chocolate. And I think that's an interesting category because, okay, we all know Cadbury's and Lindt and what have you, but if you're in the craft chocolate market, which is sort of £7-8 a bar, then seeing an award makes a difference, and it makes it makes a difference when you're choosing. For commodities like, I don't know, rice, does that make a difference? Possibly. If you're a real premium product and you want to say, look, we have the basmati rice that is far and away the best rice in the world, then I think it's important. But I think more generally categories, and interestingly, actually, meat, I've noticed often will get one of the higher Great Taste Awards, and you get quite a few golds within quality food awards as well. Whereas something like the Grocer Gold is more packaged goods, which you'd sort of expect.
Cool. There's another question.
Mm-hmm.
Santanu asks, I hope I pronounced that remotely right, asks, how do the product assessment criteria Sorry, let me start again. How are the assessment criteria set, and what does it tend to be based on? And I guess it does vary by category. Maybe if you talk about quality foods, that might be a good way to do it.
So the quality food criteria has evolved over time. So back in the day, I don't know, I was a judge maybe, well, certainly pre-COVID, we have a set in the world, pre-COVID, post-COVID, and we didn't have such a strict criteria. And I think over the years, the criteria has evolved. Great taste does have, so when you're assessing great taste, you have a summary in front of you that says, this is what a 3-star would be. A 2, please don't ask me what it is because I can't remember. A 3-star, 2-star, and a 1-star or a no star, and what type of things you could suggest which would move it up the star rating. But it does depend, I suppose, on the award. And to some extent, you could argue that quality, how do you, I'm saying it's objective because you've got these 10 criteria, but how do you actually objectively assess quality, and how do you objectively assess taste? And I think that's where the expertise of the judges comes in knowing food products, and all of them have worked in the industry a long time, both the people I've met in great taste and quality, and grocer, because I have done that as well. So they're very experienced in what makes a good product, and a lot of them will be trained in, as I have been, and had your taste buds tested, although I struggle now because I've lost my sense of taste, so I can't do chocolate and wine tasting anymore, but you can look at other things. So that's really how the criteria has evolved, and I think each award is very proud of the criteria that it works on. And certainly when I was judging Women in Food Awards, which is the first well, it's not actually, I think I did GBEA one year, non-food award that I've judged, the criteria again are quite specific, and you are looking at the entries against those. Did they get this? Did they get that? And you're scoring it. So it's quite scientific, but there will always be a seasoning of subjectivity.
I guess the key is when you're entering, you have to be really clear and understand what those criteria are, and work.
You've got to be clear on your criteria, on the criteria that you're judging against. And then it goes back to all of the good work that you've done in the past in terms of what's your brand's unique selling point, what makes it different, what makes the choice of flavors important, what makes if it's very acidic, why that acidity is important, or if it's very this or very that, what's about, and make sure that the judge understands. So for example, with Lada Makes, where you've got a Thai curry and it's fairly spicy, we're going, it's an authentic spice, so it is going to be 3 chilies or 4 chili rating, but then make sure it is 3 or 4 chili rating, because if the judge then tastes it and goes, well, actually that wasn't 3 chili rating, then that's where you start to have a problem. So you do need to be honest and congruent with the brand and the products and the claims that you're making about that brand, so that when the judge is looking at it, so the judge looks at the criteria, but they also look about what you're saying. So if you're like, it's authentic, it's hot, it's spicy, it's got lots of different layers of flavor, that's what they're going to be judging it against.
Brilliant. Thanks for the questions, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. So if you're interested in the workshop, do sign up the waitlist and get in touch if you need any help. I can't help you with your entries quality because that would be conflict of interest. But if you want to talk to me about anything else, and obviously we've got lots of other things coming up like bread and jam. So if you want help with pitching for bread and jam, that opened on Tuesday. So that will be my next thing I'm working on for various clients. And thank you very much, and have a lovely weekend, everybody.